Good morning, everybody, and thank you to the members of the European Parliament for joining us this morning. I'd especially like to thank all of you in the audience for your interest and attendance today. I'm heartened by the presence of so many of you, particularly from the small and medium enterprise sector, because what we're discussing here is going to be a major pillar of 21st century economic growth here in Europe. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to create jobs and growth in Europe. As you know, next month in Washington, D.C., we're going to be hosting the next round of the TTIP negotiations. Our common goal with our EU partners is to reduce gaps between our two regulatory systems that unnecessarily burden our trade. Working together, as we have for decades, the United States and the EU are committed to making our relationship even stronger driver of growth and competitiveness. Currently, unnecessary barriers to trade and investment, tariffs, red tape, delays, regulatory differences, uncertainties over product differences, now stand between businesses and potential customers on both sides of the Atlantic. So easing those barriers is a common sense way to more easily connect European businesses to US consumers and vice versa. Lowering tariffs and other barriers to trade should reduce costs and increase competition. And that increased competition will bring benefits to consumers in the form of lower prices and more choices in the marketplace. Combining the US and EU markets into a stronger transatlantic marketplace with more than 800 million consumers will increase opportunities for investors and exporters worldwide. The US and the EU both believe that open trade and investment markets create networks of prosperity among countries. We share the same values: openness, transparency, rule of law. Those are the cornerstones of our shared democracy, stability, efficiency, and long-term economic health. But we live in a world that's rapidly changing due to emerging powers, new markets, and new technologies. The United States is convinced that the United States and the European Union should be the ones setting the rules of the road. We should build on our shared commitment to strong labor rights, enforceable environmental protections, food that's safe for ourselves and our children, intellectual property right protections that safeguard our businesses while encouraging entrepreneurship. So TTIP can demonstrate to the rest of the world that it's not necessary to sacrifice regulatory protections in order to create opportunity. This agreement is an opportunity to promote that shared vision globally. I've heard a lot of concerns about TTIP's potential impact on countries' powers to regulate. And I'm happy to talk more about that during the Q&A if you want, but let me restate, as we have said many times, that nothing we're going to do in these TTIP negotiations will undermine the ability of governments in the United States or in the European Union to protect consumers, workers, and the environment. The EU has been equally clear that EU standards are not up for discussion. And I also want to assure you that we're fully committed to making these TTIP negotiations the most transparent trade negotiations of this size ever. Today we're here to talk about SMEs. They're the important driver of growth and jobs in both of our economies. And they're a key focus of the TTIP negotiations. Here in Slovakia, I've read data that indicates that small and medium-sized enterprises account for 99% of non-financial business enterprises. In our shared transatlantic marketplace in the US, SMEs create about 80% of new jobs. Research that was done by the US International Trade Commission has shown that small businesses that export grow more quickly, add jobs more quickly, and pay higher wages than similar SMEs that serve purely domestic markets. So I would submit that our 48 million combined small and medium enterprises on both sides of the Atlantic are counting on us to open new doors to small businesses and to facilitate that growth. As Robert hinted, right now it's the larger companies that have the ability to figure out how to work through the various complex rules that currently divide the American and European economies. Only large companies can afford the costs of multiple production lines and separate compliance departments. So as a result, if you look at the current math of trade across the Atlantic, it tends to be dominated by larger firms. But if we can make those rules simpler and more transparent and more consistent, it's the smaller companies, innovative startup firms, for example, that will become newly able to compete more widely in this newly enlarged market. Let me give you an example, a very concrete one. Recently, members of our embassy's economic team visited a company up in Piešťany called Diplomat Dental. They've been in business for 60 years here in Slovakia. They've grown to over 200 employees. They produce dental chairs and equipment here in Slovakia. It's an impressive organization. They have their own research and development division, sophisticated state-of-the-art fabrication, and modern manufacturing facilities. A couple of years ago, they decided, let's expand into the US market. They offer a great product at a competitive price, and they thought, I think rightly, that there would be high demand for their products in the US market. So they devoted a lot of company resources, time and money, to this effort. And for an organization of that size, it was a significant investment. So 2 years later, guess how many euros worth of products they're now selling in the United States? 0. 2 years later, they're still battling burdensome US regulations related to importation of dental equipment. They recently got US Food and Drug Administration approval for one thing, only to be told later that they need more certifications. Now, these are products that have been used safely throughout the EU for 60 years. They should sell well in the American market, and yet the company has nothing to show for its investment. No increased revenues, no new employees, no new jobs. Not because their equipment is unsafe, but because of the differences in the regulatory frameworks between the EU and the US. So we asked their CEO, what do you think about TTIP? And I'll read you the quote here, what he said. We see TTIP as a potentially huge opportunity because it will harmonize or at least simplify necessary regulations. For our company, this would translate into much quicker entry into the US market, which means faster growth and hiring more employees. So we believe that TTIP is absolutely necessary for future development, not only for our company, but for the bigger EU-US trade and investment partnership. So again, I would submit that TTIP can specifically increase SME exports by eliminating unnecessary duplicative regulations, making border procedures more efficient, shipping and customs paperwork simpler, internet transactions more seamless, and all this will enable business owners and entrepreneurs to more easily access new markets for their products. We need your help, though. We need active engagement by stakeholder representatives, such as you, to help us get to this agreement that's consistent with our shared values and that will give a lasting boost to our economies. Within your network of small and medium-sized enterprises here in Slovakia, please help raise awareness of TTIP. There's a whole host of resources out there that offer information to interested parties about the negotiations and the expected outcome. Please feel free to reach out to our embassy, to the European Union representation here, to the Ministry of Economy, or other folks here today if you would want to get more information. I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm looking forward to hearing what our fellow panelists have to say. And again, I'm happy to answer questions afterwards. Thank you.